Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the true inaugural show of It's Time with Keandra Ward. I'm truly excited to be here and have this opportunity. I think it's important that we not only come on and share, I can share information with you and share what I do and who I am, but I also think it's important to showcase the people who have been crazy important in my life and making me who I am and helping me to be, Keandra Ward of the Bomb Mentoring Group. And so I said, okay, now for our inaugural show, who best to have on the show than my business coach? I have worked with her on and off for years. And it's crazy because she started helping me when there was nothing. I just had an idea and I was like, I don't even know what to do with this. All I got is an idea and I need you to make it look like something. So that's pretty much what it works. So I'm excited to bring on Mrs. Cheryl Pullins. Guys, go ahead. If you're in home, I know clap come out. I'm excited. I have to get some music. I have to figure out what because I feel like I need to dance. But welcome.
Thank you, Keandra. Thank you so much for having me. You know, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you, even if it's virtual.
I know we have to do it more, but because of some of the things you taught me, I've been busy, so we can't be.
I know. I love it.
So, just to get started, I know that you are coined as the brand icon. Tell us a little bit about you and what that really means.
Sure. So, as you know, Keandra, I started my journey some years ago. This month makes 8 years that I started my journey. Yeah, and I met Keandra like about a year after I started, about a year or so after I started. So a lot has happened in that time frame, because I started off being a mentor to women entrepreneurs, which is what I was doing when I met Keandra. And then about 2 or 3 years after that, I went through this whole branding metamorphosis for my own brand. And the process was so transformational. I fell in love with the power of getting clear about your brand and how to use your personal brand and all of those things. So then I decided, you know what, I'm going to narrow it down even more, focus it down even more, and that's what I'm going to do. So that's kind of how I got into the branding space. But prior to becoming an entrepreneur, period, I worked 22 years in corporate America. I was an HR professional. I loved being a corporate girl. I had no interest in being an entrepreneur. None. Zilch. Nada. But once I dipped my toe in the entrepreneurial pool, I was hooked, and I loved the freedom and flexibility it gave me. It's a learning process, though, because you have to learn how not to be consumed by it, because that's easy. But that's just a little bit about me. I'm from Philadelphia, relocated to Florida, love living in Florida. And
now let me say this. She moved away from me and then came back. We're going to say that. We're going to put that in there. I was like, what you mean? You going where?
I did. My husband and I, we moved back to Maryland. But here's the deal, though. When we left knowing that we would be back because we loved living in Florida so much. So, that happened about 2 years later. It was about 2 years later. And here I am. Here we are 4 years later almost since the second time around. So, yeah.
Love it. So you and I met. It's interesting, the dynamic of how we met, because most people meet us at an event or, online doing what we do, but we met in the salon. I serviced her for a very long time. And it's funny because she would come into the salon and she'd have her notebooks and books and she'd be writing. And I'm nosy, y'all. I'm nosy. I was like, what you writing? What you doing?
do. I do. Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
What are you writing? And she said, well, I'm a coach or, mentor or whatever. And I don't even remember the word. And she said, this is what I do. I said, well, I need all of that. Whatever you got, that's what I need. All of that. So that's how the journey began. So when you're building an icon, or if someone's even in the process of just trying to get clarity, what would be one of the first things you would tell them to do?
My first rule of branding is always, always, first, you want to know thyself. That is my first rule of branding. Know who you are first. Branding is a very transformational process. And when I talk about branding, I talk from a strategic standpoint. I'm really not talking about your logo, your tagline, your colors, that is on the back end. There are so many things you want to do on the front end that's going to give those other visual aspects of your brand power. That's going to give it intention. So the first thing you really want to do is discover you. Discover why you're here. Discover who you're here for, and discover the solution that you have for the people you've been called to serve. Now, and there's a whole lot of other pieces in there, but that's really where you want to start. Know thyself.
Yeah. I think that at times it's a hard process in branding because we really have to be honest with ourselves.
Oh, honey. I work with hundreds of women, and I can tell you that the process is so, some women get very challenged by it because they start to uncover, and they start to go through the layers, and they get to some of them get to a certain point, and they're like, I cannot do this. Just give me a minute. And I've had some women go through the process and get to the end and not do anything with everything we just did.
Oh, I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
I have been. Oh, my God. Mm-hmm. That gets so frustrating because you see the value in people and you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, instead of them stepping out, stepping into their power, becoming the face of their brand, I always say Keandra is my poster child. Because Keandra literally did everything I told Keandra to do. Keandra did it. So when I see you now, I say, that's the fruit. That's the fruit. That's the evidence. That's the proof that the process works. Absolutely. Because when I see you, you are our joke from the very beginning, long time ago, how you felt about stepping in front of the camera.
Oh my gosh. I told her I fought, you guys. Let me tell you guys, I was like, I ain't doing it. I don't want to do it. And y'all know me. I was like, I don't want to do that. She was like, yeah, okay.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. She was very clear. And what I've learned in working with women, I don't try to coerce or force anyone to do anything, because that's not how this works. I just let them know the power that they have. They have something that people need. And in order to make it happen, people have to see you. You have to become visible.
Yeah.
You have to become visible, because we think that just because somebody is quote unquote popular, that they're better, because we do this comparison thing, which we don't need to do anyway. But a lot of times they're popular and they have their following because they've been visible, because they're out there. They're saying what they're saying. They're bringing their people along on their journey with them, versus trying to get it all situated and all right behind the scenes. And then poof, here I am. But nobody knows who you are. So, yeah.
And there's nothing behind you. And I realized, even for me in this process, because I'm a little bit more open. I'm a semi-private person. It's like, I don't want to share my business or what I'm doing. And I realized that you don't have to share all of your life, but you can share portions of your life. And it was funny because I went out of town and someone said to me, I didn't know you were out of town. I was like, well, why would you know? Like, we don't talk. But then I said, oh, I get it, because on live and being on live, and I haven't mentioned it, so people really feel like they know you and know everything about you. And I think that that's cool, but I also think that we do have to show the humanity or the human side of who we are to people.
Oh, absolutely. Well, if you think about how vested some people are in supporting celebrities, Beyonce has her Bayhive and Lady Gaga has her little monsters, which I think is hilarious. I don't think monster. Oh my gosh. But these are the communities. I don't know I don't know what to call Taylor Swift's people, but they have these followings. They give you a glimpse into their lives. They're willing to be vulnerable and transparent to a point. No, they're not telling all of their business, but they're letting people see the sides of them that they don't see when they're on the stage. So you see a video of Beyonce sitting on the floor talking about her struggles with fear and talking about how to manage and deal and live in that life that she lives in that fishbowl that she lives in. So you watch a documentary of Lady Gaga talking about her fight and struggle with fibromyalgia. So when you start to get a glimpse of, like you said, Keandra, the humanity of this person, it gives you a connection.
Yes,
they resonate with you. And that is really that is so powerful when it comes to your brand, because you want to create something that creates connection, that resonates, that people can feel like, oh, wow, we have something in common. Even though they are this superstar, this icon of their industry, we still have something in common. We have a common thread. And that's where you have to meet your people in that common thread, that common thread.
Right there. And it's funny because so I watch men a lot. So I like Shamar Moore. He calls his tribe baby girls. Like he has t-shirts. And he calls the guys something else. I don't even remember. But the girls he calls baby girls. He'll say, hey, baby girls. And they're like, and it's so funny because I'm like, people resonate with that and with him, and they follow him. He had the t-shirts, the hats, and he was talking about him being sick, and he's sorry he hasn't showed up for them because he's been sick. And it was like, and I realized that people really do want to know who you are. And if I want to work with you, I need to know who you are. I want to be comfortable with you.
Absolutely. There's so much, and see, and this is the part where people start to, I work with women. So this is the part where they really get uncomfortable, because there used to be a time where as a business owner or an entrepreneur, this was your life over here, this was your business over here, and the two never met. But I have always shared the principle that what goes on in your life shows up in your business. So they do bleed together. They do come together, because who you are in your business is who you are in your life. Who you are in your life is who you are in your business. Even if you might try to act like that's not the case for a little while, it will come out.
And that's what we tell people all the time. Like, no matter whatever goes on in life, it will come out in business. And I use the concept of the middle child syndrome. Sometimes you may have the middle child syndrome and you don't realize it. And then, and we used to talk about this in the salon all the time, where a person would come into the salon and then someone else may come and they may do a service better than yours. And then the owner may favor them a little bit better. And then that middle child syndrome that you've had because you felt like your mom and dad favored your older sister or younger brother more than you comes up, and here you are, catty. And I used to always do that in the salon. Like, okay, so what's the problem? Where is that anger coming from? Where is that, and it's usually from something from our past. And as women, we feel like because we're in business, it's just not going to show up. I had a gentleman in corporate tell me, he said, you guys, women, you're too emotional in business. So, let's talk about that. What do you think about are we too emotional, or can we really do business without massive emotions?
Well, one of the things that I discovered about myself in this whole process, one of my coaches that I had, she asked me a question, and then she asked me to go ask my husband the question. And the question was whether or not I function from a masculine standpoint or a feminine, because there's masculine and there's feminine. In particular in business, some things are very tactical, they're very strategic, which is masculine, but some things are very woo-woo and feely and nurturing, and that's very feminine. And I discovered that a large part of how I functioned was very masculine. I had a very masculine approach. I was very tactical. I was very much in my brain, in my head. And I had to learn how to really leverage and bring in the feminine parts of who I am. So to answer your question, I don't think it's a thing of being too emotional. I don't think, being too emotional, that's just a little bit. But I think it's more about this masculine, feminine pieces, because the deal is both male and female have masculine and feminine within them. And I'm not talking about, sexual identity. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about energetically, how do you show up? Some women they think from a very masculine standpoint. And even in relationships, that's kind of where you see it, because that's why she had me ask my husband. He was the one that said, well, you think like a guy in a lot of ways. And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah, they're like, you're like a guy. I'm like, what do you mean?
Right. So I don't think it's about emotion as much as it is about the type of energy that you're bringing into your business, be it very heavily masculine, very heavily feminine, but trying to really find that balance between the two, where you're authentically being who you are, and it just so happens you have these two sides to you that can show up at any given time. Sometimes when I'm working with my clients, I can see it is straight like, look, this is the deal. Let's get this done. You've been wallowing over here too long. We got to move on, or times where I'm more nurturing. I'm more, okay, let's sit in this for a minute. Let's figure out what's going on, that kind of thing. So you wind up switching back and forth. But again, I don't think it's so much about the emotion. I think it's more just about knowing where you are energetically, masculine or feminine.
Oh, that's really good. And I know for myself, that's been me. People say, oh, you're like a guy. Like you're like, my friends have told me that. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, what are you talking about? But and then my thought was, but I like getting my hair and nails done. And I like, no, that's not it. It's really the way that you maneuver and the mode and how strategic and where you are technically and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that is something very good that I'm even going to go back and I'm going to ask myself that same question today, because Mondays is my admin and my regular day. So I'm going to take some time and I'm going to think about and answer that question. So that's really good. Let me ask you this. What does it mean to be an icon?
So let me give you a little backstory. If you follow me at all, I love telling stories. That's just kind of how I function. Yep. So growing up, I'm talking very young age, I have always been fascinated with movies. I love movies. I've taken film classes to understand how to deconstruct a movie. And I mean, really, I got a real love Jones for movies. And I always remember these beautiful women on the big screen. And then, watching them in movies and then learning about them and reading about them and discovering that they were considered, the icons of the movie industry. And pardon me. So when I started thinking about the work that I was doing, I said, I want to help create icons, industry icons, women that you look to and you say, I want to be like her. And I'm saying be like her extremely loosely, because you don't really want to be like a person. You want to be inspired by them, but you don't necessarily want to mimic them.
Yeah.
But so I'm using this be like that. But I wanted women, to be at the top of their game, that others coming along were inspired by, empowered by. So I said, well, if they can have icons in Hollywood, why can't they have icons in industries, in businesses? And why can't we create icons? So the backstory was, it was my fascination with film and old Hollywood that even got me thinking about the idea of being an icon and what that looked like. And then how I could use that, because I'm always looking for a way to flip something, I promise you. I'm always looking for a way to flip it, to make it go, oh, I wonder if I could use that concept here. That's why I always tell people, step outside your industry for creativity and inspiration. So oftentimes I step into the space of Hollywood, movies, things of that nature, or event planners. That's a whole nother story. But the whole concept of icons was, how could I support women in a way that they could become the icon of their industry? That when people think of branding, they think of Cheryl Pullins. When people think of business coaching, they think of Keandra Ward, like top of mind. So when you ask the question, who's your favorite movie star, or who's your favorite entertainer, it's that first person that comes to mind. That really is the icon. That's the icon.
Yeah. And here's where I was like, oh no, so as a client, when you say icon, I was like, oh, I gotta step it up. I was like, oh, because I realized that it's okay for us to show up, and it's okay for us to show up in the best way in our industry. And sometimes we try to keep ourselves down or not show up in the way that we would want to, because of fear, because of other things. And I had to embrace showing up. Mm-hmm. And I told the women when I was in California, I said, I realized that I'm not afraid to say yes anymore.
I'm
not afraid to say yes. Mm-hmm. And that's where I am in life. And that's what I feel that helped me begin to move into my version of what I feel iconic is for what I do and who I am, because icons aren't afraid to say yes. Like they will go, they step in, and and that's what I want people to understand, that it may not be perfect. I may not do it all right, but I'm not afraid to try and say yes. So what do you think holds people back from saying yes to themselves?
Oh, honey, we could talk about that all afternoon.
Let's be two things.
This is a lot of the work that I do. We talk a lot about the things that could potentially hold you back, what's been holding you back. We take some deep dives into why you might have issues with being visible, why you don't want to step in front of your logo, why do you don't want to step in front of the camera, why you're afraid to step on stage. A lot of times, and Keandra, I think you mentioned that earlier, it goes back to some things when you were younger. I remember working with one of my clients, and she did not like public speaking at all, which we know is the number one fear of most adults. And she did not like it. She didn't want to stand in front and talk to people or anything like that. Well, working with her, what we discovered was that when she was younger, her father used to tell her that nobody wanted to hear what she had to say. You're a kid. Nobody wants to hear it. Go away. Stop talking. So as a result, she built this resistance to standing on stage, being a speaker, because she learned, and this was the tape that she was playing over in her head, that nobody wanted to hear what she had to say anyway.
Wow.
But that was a seed that was planted and watered by her very own parents. You know, I often say that our people in authority when we are younger are the biggest creativity killers. They kill the creativity in their children sometimes, many times, before their children even get started. They try to suppress it, they try to redirect it, you know. So then we get this adult woman who now doesn't want to use her voice and use her gift to help inspire others, because she's been told and she's created this story around the fact that nobody wants to hear what she has to say. So I said all of that to say, a lot of times the reason why we won't step out, step up, and stand in our star power is because we have these mental minions, these little gremlins in our head that remind us of what some things that were said to us when we were younger, experiences we had when we were younger. Life has happened, you know, so we go, well, no, I'm not going to do that, because nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Nobody's going to listen to me. Nobody's going to follow me. I'm not going to have that, you know, an impact on someone's life. So I just won't do it. Plus, there are a bunch of other people doing it anyway. I'm not going to make a difference. These are the stories that women are telling themselves, and it's killing them.
Yeah.
It's killing them, because
you know what? I said that too, though, to you. Do you remember when I was transferring from the salon to coaching? I was like, who's going to listen to me? I had so many. Do you remember? I was like, I was there. I get that. Oh, my goodness. That resonated. I forgot about that. Really resonated with me. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. So, you know, these women, they have this, you know, Nia Long, she calls it a fire in their belly. They have this fire in their belly, and they're not doing anything about it. And it's killing them on the inside because they want it so bad. But the stories they tell themselves is preventing them from stepping into it and saying, you know what, I'm going to do it afraid. I'm going to do it. It might be messy. It might not be, it's never going to be perfect. I'm going to tell you that right now. So if you're waiting for that, you might as well just quit. Because it will never be perfect. You know, because just when you get it to where you want it, the shift happens every single time. So, you know, stepping into the beauty of what you've been called to in the world, it is it is soul satisfying, because you will never get any rest until you do.
Yeah, it always nags at you. And I remember saying, I quit. I don't want to do this. I'm done. And then I got a call. And the lady was like, I need you to come speak at my event. I was like, no, I quit. You know, it's so funny because sometimes, even at the moment that you're ready to quit, that's when God is ready to open you up and show you something different. And,
absolutely. And you're going to quit a lot. You're going to want to throw in the towel a lot. You have some of those days you're like, you know what? I wash my hands of this. I'm done. I'm not, you know, and then you come to your senses and you're like, okay, I just had an entrepreneurial hissy fit. So now I might as well get myself together and go do what I know I'm supposed to do. So you're going to encounter those days, very much so.
Get your big girl underwear on and let's go, little girl. Get up, get up, get up.
Absolutely. And here's the deal. You know, when you think about icons, you know, icons aren't like, I mean, Keandra said this, icons aren't afraid. They step in. And icons are also honest. They are transparent. They are vulnerable. Icons are, you know, they're willing to say, you know what? This is the truth. They're willing to be real. They're willing to share with you their own challenges, their own struggles. So, you know, stepping into, you know, becoming an icon is, you know, it's a crazy journey, but it's an amazing journey. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And here's what I've also learned in business is that you got to be okay with transforming and transformation and growing.
Mm-hmm.
Because just like we've watched my brand, I've even watched your brand go through changes and be, and change, but it's all for the better because it's all growth. But when we think about a child growing, they don't look the same as a newborn that they do when they're 5 years old.
Absolutely.
That's
an amazing point.
Yeah, we want it to look the same. And it's like, well, no, you're growing. You're busting out the seams. You got high waters on, baby. I need you to change some things up. So how do you help, or what would you say someone could do when they're in that phase where it's time to transform a little bit, but they're stuck and wanting to be the same?
Yeah, so we really have to work through the stuck piece, because what I know for sure, at every level, at every layer, there are a new set of challenges. There are a new set of discoveries. So you may have gone, moved fine through the first 2 or 3 layers, and now you're at this layer where you've kind of felt like you've plateaued. And a personal story that happened to me last year. I had kind of plateaued. I was very stuck. I was like, I was questioning whether or not I even wanted to do it anymore. I told you would have those times, and sometimes it lasts longer than a day. It'll last a season. And I literally almost became, invisible. I did just enough, and I was stuck. So I had to get a coach. I had to get a coach that helped me through that piece, the mindset piece. Because a lot of this, when you're talking about branding, you encounter a lot of mindset challenges. Yeah. Because for so long you told yourself a certain type of story that is very untrue, but you've bought into it. You bought into the hype of not having to, grow your brand, not having to be visible, you bought into that. And you really have to make a mental shift. So when you get to the place where you're stuck, and you know that there's greater, that there's more, that there is, higher levels for you to go. Now those gremlins, those mental gremlins, they're working overtime, trying to keep you from stepping out looking stupid, which is kind of the stuff that they say to you. You know what I mean? You're gonna look crazy. Well, you never get anywhere not looking crazy. That's the truth. You have to expand and step outside of your comfort zone, feel a little crazy, be a little wonky. It's still the example of the little child. When a little baby starts learning how to walk, they don't just stand up and start walking. They stand, they wobble, they fall back down on their bottom, they crawl for a little bit. Then they stand, then they start. I remember my oldest daughter, she would hang on to me just so she could walk without falling. She would hang on, so I would hold her hand. But here's the deal, and this is something I remember: when my children would fall when they were little, I didn't jump up and run to them like, oh my God, are you okay? Yes, I kept an eye on them. I watched them. And if they fell, I just looked at them. And here's what I would notice. When I stopped running after them, making sure they're okay, they would get up, look around, and keep on going.
Absolutely.
And that's what you have to do.
And you say, get up, you'll be okay. Get up, you'll be okay. You're all right. Don't cry. You're okay.
Yep. So now, because, most times we go running after them, and then they're now they're crying and they're all dramatic. But when I stopped doing that, and I wouldn't do anything, I would just watch them. I would almost act like I wasn't looking at them. And they would get up and go on about their business. And then I would get up and go over and make sure they're okay. But I never made a big deal about the fact that they fell. That they fell. So even in your own, as you're growing your own business, as you're building your brand, there are going to be days you're going to stumble, you're going to fall. There are going to be days where you're going to want to throw in the towel. There are going to be days where you get stuck. But this is where a coach becomes valuable to you, because a coach can help you navigate through that. They're not going to tell you what to do. They're going to ask you the right questions to get you to start to navigate through that so that you can get up, get yourself together, and keep right on moving forward.
I had to tell one of my clients just recently, I'm not your babysitter. I'm not going to babysit you. But what I will do is I will guide you. I'll give you the instruction. I'll give you everything that I have and everything that I know, but I am not going to babysit you. Like, you're going to you have to get to that place where you just have to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes. You can take all the coaching courses, free, paid, go to every convention, workshop, and yes. everything. You still don't do anything, it doesn't matter. Like,
oh my gosh, we see that so much. People run from conference to conference to conference to conference to conference. They have notebooks stacked from the floor to the ceiling almost. I know I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I want you to get the visual. You know, they stockpile this information. They become information junkies, and they never pull the trigger. They never execute. They never do anything long enough to see what type of result they're going to get. We see this so much. You know, when people come to me, and they come to me over and over again, and they're talking the same thing, I said, did you implement the last thing that we talked about? And if you didn't, don't talk to me anymore about this until you do. Do something.
And I'm like, you know, I used to always be like, Miss Cheryl, this is what I want to do. She'd be like, well, what does that look like to you? Oh, don't ask me that question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, this branding journey is so much a mindset thing.
Yeah.
We think it's logos and colors and websites and business cards. That is only like the little component to it. Branding is 90% strategy. Yeah. Or if you want to use the Pareto principle, it's 80-20. It's 80% strategy, 20% visual. We're making it 20% strategy and 80% visual. So it loses, and when we have that ratio, it loses its power, its impact, its influence, because it doesn't have that clarity and understanding behind it, that what you're doing and what you're putting out in the world is more than and bigger than and greater than a logo and what color palette you're going to use.
And then you get upset because you spent all this money on that and then nothing. Like, we were like, I got a website, I did this, and then nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, what was the purpose and strategy behind it? And
absolutely.
Why are you really doing it? And what I realize is people really don't know their why. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I'm doing this because, you know, but when you get deeper into really figuring out, I ended up going back and adding a whole module in the things that we do, really breaking down the why, because I said, this is where people don't get it. Because the moment that they understand the true meaning of their why, it takes on a different shape, and I see their productivity being different. So
Absolutely. I was watching the show the other night, and with Nia Long, and they were interviewing her, and she said, and if you remember, I made that comment about fire in your belly, because when she said it, I loved it. It resonated with me so much. But she said her why, her fire in her belly, was about giving her mother a better quality of life.
Yes.
That was the driving force for her. So if you can discover and connect with that big why, that fire in your belly, that thing that, you know, the reason why you do what you do, the reason why you'll do it no matter what, you have to figure out what that is. Yeah. Because once you connect with that, that's what's going to drive you, even when people aren't calling you, even when nobody's emailing, even when nobody's buying your products, you're still going to show up. You're still going to step in. You're still going to make it happen, because there's a greater purpose. There's a greater why that's at stake. And if you aren't doing what you desire in your heart to do, what you've been called to do, what you want to put on. If you're not doing that, the fire in your belly doesn't go away.
It doesn't. It does
Doesn't
not.
go away. It doesn't go away. And when you discover that, it's very powerful. But there's some work that you have to do behind it. You know, there's some things that you have to, and again, discovering who you are, knowing thyself, knowing what makes you tick, knowing what your triggers are. You know, I teach a lot about emotional intelligence. I just started working on a talk about emotional intelligence for women entrepreneurs. And something you don't hear and talked about, you know. So I bring this corporate mind, you know, this corporate stuff into the entrepreneurial space, because emotional intelligence is all about knowing what your triggers are, knowing what your triggers are, understanding what's happening with other people when you encounter them. This is amazing when it comes to working with clients one-on-one, being able to sense and see where they are emotionally instead of just moving forward with your agenda. You know, I could talk about this stuff all day long.
And that's why I was telling someone that I got to a place in building and doing this, because of course I went to school for psychology. I did hair for 20 years, and then now it's this. And I was like, you know, I just wasted all this time, all my life, with everything else that I used to do. And I realized, no, it was not until last year that it was just revealed to me that everything that I did up until now was preparation for my purpose. I'm actually operating in purpose. And it was preparation, and those things weren't my purpose, but they're helping me along the way. And I went back and looked at the corporate world, what I've learned in psychology, what I learned in the beauty industry, speaking, doing hair, working for a hair care company, all of those things I utilize in this one space. So as we begin to wrap up, I just want to talk on the point of nothing is wasted. You know, a lot of times when we're transitioning, because I went through a major transition, I went and you helped me through that, because I went from doing hair to now I'm coaching, and I was like, look, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. And this is a transition because I'm so used to this one thing. And now I feel like I've wasted that entire experience when it wasn't wasted at all. It really is a catalyst and prepared me for where I am today and what I do today.
So I talk a lot about foundation.
Yeah.
And when it comes to building your brand, foundation is key. So those experiences, the working in corporate America, the being a platform speaker for hair care companies, going to college, being a psychology major, all of those were part of your foundation. Those were bricks or pillars or whatever that you put in your foundation, and we all have them. We all have them, and then we have to learn how to leverage them. So I talk a lot about your passions, your purpose, and your personality. And all of these pieces go into building the foundation of your brand. These are things that you leverage and you use to step into the marketplace. This is what makes your story, your brand narrative so unique, because you have unique experiences. Yes, a lot of people may go to college and be psychology majors, but nobody had the experience you had personally. So your narrative, your story is different. You have a unique personality, so you leverage that and bring that in. You have this experience, you know, that you had no idea down the road. I had no idea that after 22 years, I would be an entrepreneur, and I would be pulling on that knowledge and that experience to speak to and to leverage in my business. So when I start pulling out things like emotional intelligence, you know, the psychology of visibility and those types of, when I start doing that, that's because I spent 22 years in corporate America and I get it, you know? So I'm like, oh yeah, I go in my library, I pull out a book, you know, something that I read, In Search of Excellence. I read that when I used to work in corporate America, you know, those types of things. no experience, and those are our experiences. Maybe you weren't in corporate America. Maybe you didn't go to college. Maybe you had a different path. But those experiences are they're no less. They're no less full of impact. They're no less usable. You can use them just the same. Maybe you got your knowledge a little different. Maybe your experience was a little different. Maybe you started out working at McDonald's. Well, what did you learn when you worked at McDonald's? You learned how to, you learned order of operations. You learned, customer service. You learned a whole lot of things. So no experience, no education is wasted. It's all of tremendous value. It's never wasted. It's all of value. And it's how you see it. It's how you perceive it. And once you perceive it in the correct way, you can garner from it. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And what I do is look at every experience, and then I go back to my past. And now this is what I do. And I look at what can I bring from there to this experience. And then what do I need to learn new to cultivate?
Yes. Yes. So we have to stay in an ever flow of learning. None of us have arrived. I gobble up and read everything I can. I've been doing branding for a good while. I've had amazing success, with women and getting them catapulted in their industries. But I still always stay in this flow of learning. New ways, new ideas, new strategies that I can implement that's going to help and support the people that I serve even more.
Wow. So as we begin to wrap up, because you and I can talk all day. Let me
all
just
day.
say
We've done it.
We will sit at a place and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yes.
We are still there. But I just want to honor you and just thank you for the deposits that you've made in my life. I know I don't always say it, and I know I'll be like, okay, I'm busy, but I do want to let you know that it's never forgotten. And I'm always talking about you, and I'm always telling people how I was like, I remember saying, I don't want to be on a flyer. I just want to do this. I don't want to do that. And you were like, okay, that's great, but that's not what this is going to be. But you loved me through, even when I was shut down and be like, I ain't doing nothing. You loved me through that. And I appreciate that because it was all needed for where I am. And I just want to publicly let everyone know and let you know that I absolutely love you. And I thank you for everything that you have deposited in me over the past, 8 years, maybe even 10, 8 to 10 years.
Long time.
I can't, I will never, it's just, I can never say enough about you helping me through and not only the beginning, like literally from scratch to now is where we started. That's we need to write that. We can do that together from scratch now. But anyway, so it's amazing to see you continue to grow and to continue to see you show up, because by you showing up, it makes me show up. And I thank you for that.
It was my honor. It was my honor. You were my first coaching client when I started. So you will always, always, always hold that special place with me. And it is wonderful to watch you soar. Every time I see what you're doing, or I see something, or I see your face on a flyer, or I see a video come across my feed, it just does me well to know that the seeds that were planted are beginning to harvest. And we ain't seen nothing yet. We ain't seen nothing yet. So that has been an absolute honor. To see you soar in such a magnificent way in supporting the people you've been called to serve. So thank you for allowing me to do that, even at a time when I was even finding my own way. You were open enough to hear what I had to say, to implement and to get results. So certainly an honor. Yeah.
So let's tell everybody what you're doing now, what you have coming up, and how they can find you and how they can connect with you.
Awesome. So Yes, you can find me on Facebook. That's where I am. And it's Cheryl A. Pullins on Facebook. It is my page. I'm maxed out on my friends, so you can go to my Facebook page. I also have a group. I have a group on Facebook, and it's called Iconic Branding for Women Entrepreneurs. And this week, we're starting a 5-day personal branding challenge. So you might want to hop in there now so you can be a part of that challenge. And in there, you're going to get some video, you're going to get some exercises. It's going to be something fun to do. Also, I'm on Instagram. I love Instagram. I love the gram. So you can follow me on there as well. And I'm Cheryl Pullins on Instagram as well. And I have a book. I have a book coming out later this year, and I'm very excited about it. It is my second book. I have one book called What Every Diva Must Know about starting her own business, how to build a stellar brand from scratch. But this book is going to be called Iconic, and it's about personal branding for women entrepreneurs. And it really is about how to become an icon in your industry, or an industry icon, as I like to say. So there is a lot going on. If you're in the Tampa, Florida area, even if you're not, I'm doing an event. And that event is, you can inbox me actually about the event, because I don't want to date the video. So inbox me, I'll tell you about the event. Follow me, you'll know about the event. It's coming up very soon. I have a number of branding workshops coming up in the Tampa area that I have not done before, so I'm really excited about. So inbox me, message me if you want to know about that, or check with Keandra, how to get in touch with me, any of those things. And that's pretty much it. Awesome. Oh, I guess I should give you my website. That might be a good idea. So my website is CherylPullins.com. That's my website.
Cheryl, I'm going to put it up here. We appreciate you so much. And again, I thank you. No matter if it's on a live interview or we're face to face, there's always value that I take from being in your presence. So I appreciate that. And I just want to tell everybody, make sure that you connect with her. Make sure that you watch and see what she's doing. Join her programs, go to the events, show up, because I promise you, if you show up, she's going to show up, and you want to see what she shows up in. I show up and I sit there and I'm like, okay, all right, that's what we're doing. So thank you so much for being on our very first live show. I wouldn't have had it.
You're welcome. What an honor.
Thank you so much. And guys, listen, we'll be back next week. You'll see more information online. The webpage will be up soon. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show, if you have a story to tell, if you have branded, if you are a business that is growing, or you've done something phenomenal, even if you're not a business, but you just have an amazing story to tell or an amazing story to share, please reach out to us on our website at thebombmentoring.com, or you can inbox me, Keandra Ward, there on Facebook and on Instagram at The Bomb Mentor. We definitely want to hear from you. So have an amazing day, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.